Woo! Let's do it. Good morning and welcome everybody to the Crypto Mining Show, your one-stop shop for all cryptocurrency news from the perspective of a cryptocurrency miner. That means that we do discuss technology, supply chain issues, and of course all things that are considered to be involved within cryptocurrency. Today's topics are going to include basically the most GPUs shipped since Q2 of 2018 from both NVIDIA and AMD. Good news on that front. Then we are going to be following that up with an opinion piece from CoinDesk that states no crypto won't fix this for Russia. We'll be going ahead and getting into that. And then more Russian news, or Russian related or Russia adjacent news, of course, from Flexpool going ahead and stopping the service to Russia. We're going to discuss the ramifications of that as it pertains to cryptocurrency and its guiding principles. And then, of course, I have a little bit of a snippet of Ted Cruz on Twitter. Unfortunately, boys, this is the way it goes. We are turning into a political channel quickly, and it's not exactly what I saw this path being. Unfortunately, as I tweeted yesterday, the war that is ahead of us is centralization versus decentralization, and we must fight tooth and nail for financial autonomy. And unfortunately, I am going to have to be a mouthpiece for that because, let's be frank, there's not a lot of others in the cryptocurrency space that are bringing up these topics, and it's very important. You need to understand that at its very base, Bitcoin and its white paper is written in a way to provide financial autonomy, to fix the money, which in turn would hopefully fix the world, or at least some of the issues. It is what it is. I understand that we may rub some people the wrong way. I want you to understand something though. If I disagree with you, it doesn't mean that I don't like you as an individual. If I disagree with you, it doesn't mean that I want to shut you out of conversation. I think that you should have your opinion in your mouthpiece as well. And I welcome all discussion. Please refrain from personal attacks, things like curse words towards other people, bad language towards other people. That is unnecessary. We are here to have an open dialogue and discuss these for the benefit of the cryptocurrency enthusiast as a whole, right? Before we get into it, we are going to run an ad for today. It is from yours truly. Today's sponsor is myself. To support the channel, click the join button below the video and you will get access to our privately hosted Rocket Chat. Selecting the $1.99 option will get you access, and after that you need to head over to the membership tab, scroll down, and expand out your membership perks. Find the section for connecting on social media, and in that section there will be a secret registration URL to join Rocket Chat, where you can sign up to enjoy talking with other cryptocurrency enthusiasts and miners without spammers, scammers, or bots. Boom, and we're back to get the bedhead, as mentioned in chat, taken care of. We have a little bit of coffee here in my new mug from Bitsby Trippin'. This is a shameless promotion of the OG of crypto miners on YouTube. Please go sub to his channel, and thank you Bits Carter from Bitsby Trippin' for the nice mug, and of course a RebTech motherboard back here that we're going to get to test out. Yeah, sit from here. You can see the whole logo. There we go. Oh, there you go. Nice. Nice. I'm very excited about that one. And then, of course, always use GamerSup's SOAT promo code when ordering. And if you basically order over a certain amount, you can get yourself a Bitcoin shaker here. Oh, there's the Bitcoin side. So there's all the promotions for today. Bitsby Trippin's paying me good money. I heard he's going to send me an AMG Mercedes too for review on the channel. Jokes aside, let's get into the first topic for today. Discrete graphics cards from NVIDIA and AMD saw largest shipments increase since Q2 of 2018. And this is coming from WCCF Tech, if I can get my deal working there. This was posted on February 24th, 2022. Discrete graphics card shipments from AMD and NVIDIA saw the biggest increase this quarter, while integrated GPUs declined. According to the latest report from John Petty Research, discrete graphics card shipments for PCs hit an impressive 13 million unit figure, marking a 3% growth sequentially and 18% increase from the previous year. At the same time, integrated GPUs saw a decline of 15% compared to last year and only saw a 0.8% sequential increase. This marks the highest shipment figure for discrete graphics cards since Q2 of 2018, when AIBs were able to ship up to 12.75 million units. So we shipped even more than Q2 of 2018. And if you remember, this is a marker. This is a straight up a marker that is similar to the previous super cycle of Bitcoin and mining, and that steep decline in, of course, price for Bitcoin and Ethereum. So while it looks good from the perspective of huge shipments coming in for GPUs, it can be a signal as well for the mining markets that we may see, of course, that bear market coming into play. It's kind of funny how it is actually following in multiple different markets here, that pattern of the Bitcoin super cycle. So are we going to be experiencing another bear market as indicated by all of the similarities to the previous super cycle? Possibly. I don't really know. Lots of new things are going on. It just is one of those kind of convenient coincidences that I noticed and I wanted to point out, right? So let's get into more of this. It says, here's the quick highlights. The GPU's overall attach rate, which includes integrated and discrete GPUs, desktop, notebook, and workstations to PCs for the quarter, was 121%, down negative 3.8% from last quarter. The overall PC CPU market increased by 3.9% quarter to quarter and decreased by 21% year to year. Desktop graphics add-in boards, AIBs that use discrete GPUs, increased by 3% from the last quarter, and this quarter saw a 22% change in the tablet shipment from last quarter. This is still not the historical high of 16.1 million units of discrete graphics cards that shipped back in Q3 of 2017 and Q1 2018, but it marks a return to normalcy after shipments declined to their lowest point of just 7.4 million units in Q2 of 2019. Discrete graphics card shipments have been averaging around 9 to 10 million units for the last few years, but despite the reports of supply shortages, these figures show us that the market is on its path to recovery through the price, though the pricing still remains sky high. As for vendor-specific market share, both NVIDIA and AMD have a GPU market share of 19%, while Intel still rocks ahead with its 62% market share thanks to its integrated graphics. If we look at the discrete graphics market share, AMD saw a slight increase to 19%, 17% last quarter, while NVIDIA dropped down a bit to 81% from the 83% seen last quarter. It is reported that NVIDIA Ampere currently only accounts for 15% of the gaming user base, according to Steam's hardware survey, so there's a lot of room for growth when prices fall down. With that said, these figures only cover pre-Alder Lake and Ryzen 6000 notebooks, so the first 2 quarters of 2022 can see more improved GPU sales figures from all vendors. It also definitely seems pretty clear that a lot of the Ampere sales are going to, of course, cryptocurrency miners. I think this has been a known from the launch of Ampere, because it pretty much launched right at the beginning of this cycle. And we'll have to see how this plays out in the future, especially with NVIDIA's choice to basically ramp up the amount of power requirements for the next generation of basically Ada Lovelace, which is going to essentially require up to something like 850 watts for a single GPU at the top end. And that's going to make it very difficult for cryptocurrency miners and, of course, gamers alike to even power these GPUs, seeing that the only power supplies available only have a single PCIe Gen 5 16-pin adapter currently planned. And so we'll have to see kind of how this plays out. Obviously, what you expect from NVIDIA is to launch the 4080, the 80s and the 70s first. Those should take a single, and then of course we may see power supplies above that. What will be really curious is the power supply requirements and the increase in cost just to even build a PC with NVIDIA GPUs. I think the path of AMD moving towards more power efficiency and traditional rasterization is going to be more beneficial for them in the short term, and even possibly, of course, the long run here. I do see a resurgence of AMD GPUs within the gaming market, and depending on what they do with their memory, it could still also show benefits on the mining side. Of course, the projections for the new Intel Arc series GPUs are the most exciting from a power to hash rate perspective, as they are sub 35 watts with a 128-bit bus, meaning there is potential there for 30 mega hash a second at sub 35 watts per GPU. And that's something I'm keeping an eye on. And as we get more confirmation, of course, we will have that shown on this channel. So make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified when we get that new news. Now, it's dark times, guys. We have a lot of stuff going on in the geopolitical space. Of course, lots of unrest, lots of bad things happening. And I want to make sure that everybody is aware that when we sit down and start discussing these topics, it's important to have a baseline of your principles. I think there's a lot of people that have started educating the public on making sure you set your baseline of principles. That way you can guide yourself through that and remain consistent. That doesn't mean that you don't change your mind. And I am always willing to have my mind changed at the same time. But having those baseline principles, and in cryptocurrencies, is going to be even more important. And you'll see that as we continue to talk through this. That will help you essentially remain more consistent and achieve the end goal of whatever those guiding principles would lead you to. So for example, right, you may say something like murder is wrong. Well, why is murder wrong? Murder is wrong because it is an individual basically taking the right to life away from another individual. It is an individual interfering with another individual's right to live. And basically then we can say, okay, so now if I believe that it is incorrect for an individual, a government, or an entity to infringe on the rights of an individual to live, what other portions would I say are inherent rights if I believe in inherent rights? And then should they be able to basically, that entity or government, should they be able to violate those rights of the individual? This is where I have a lot of guiding principles in my personal life and kind of where I sit. You can disagree with that, and I'm fine, and we could have a philosophical discussion of that in some sort of chat space or something like that in the future. So that's just an example of how you would set those guiding principles. Now for Bitcoin, that is going to be important because we need to be basically aware of the guiding principles of Bitcoin. And we can get a lot of that from the Bitcoin white paper and basically see where that is. Then you could decide if you agree with the guiding principles of Bitcoin, and then you can either move in that direction, or you can say you don't agree with it and you can move in the opposite direction. And that should be guiding your purchase decision on individual cryptocurrencies as they sit now. And then from there, you can move basically in tandem with that. There are stark differences between the way Bitcoin functions and the way Ethereum, for example, functions. And maybe you are all in on the commodity side. You think that, there should be a governing body of a currency, and that governing body should be able to dictate to the users of that cryptocurrency things across the board, whether that be consensus mechanisms, governance, etc. That's kind of where we're at. And then in conjunction, or as opposed to that, you could look at Bitcoin and you could say, okay, well, the guiding principles here for Bitcoin is going to be a peer-to-peer cashless system without the interference of governments or banks or third parties in general. This could also relate to things like mining pools, etc. And the importance of that, essentially, from the perspective of the ethos, is that you have your individual autonomy, meaning that the individual now has the autonomy, the financial autonomy to determine essentially who they interact and exchange with without the interference of somebody else telling you whether you can or cannot do that. And this becomes obviously an interesting topic when we start talking about the involvement of governments and sanctions and so on. So unfortunately, we end up in a position where if we sit with the guiding principles of Bitcoin, we end up having to resolve our basically how we feel about sanctions, how we feel about interactions of pools and the interactions of governments together, and whether or not those are okay. Now, from my perspective, what I see is empowering the individual will ultimately shift society in a positive direction. And so what that means to me is that you need to separate the governments and the banks and any governing body, companies, corporations, etc., away from the individual. Because one individual in a company can be completely different from the ethos of whatever that company is doing. One individual that lives within a country could completely disagree with whatever that country is doing on the geopolitical stage, right? So if we take a look at that from the perspective of Russia, we could say that empowering the individuals within Russia could actually end up resolving, of course, the issues with the government of Russia. And these are important distinctions to make if we start getting into philosophical debates surrounding sanctions and specifically Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and how it interacts and plays in all of this. Now, what I'm about to read, I don't think is going to agree with me in a lot of different ways, but I think it's important to get these opinion pieces out. And we're going to be talking about this article from CoinDesk, and it says, no, crypto won't fix this for Russia. So cryptocurrency is an unlikely workaround for expanded U.S. sanctions against Putin's government following the Ukraine invasion, according to legal and blockchain experts. So the U.S. is moving to cut Russian oligarchs and officials off from their offshore funds and their ability to transact within the global financial system after Russia forces invaded Ukraine late Wednesday. Unlike previous sanctions, the new measures may go as far as expelling Russia from the Society of Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications, SWIFT, the international messaging service used by banks to send money around the world. While cryptocurrency conceivably may offer an alternative way for individuals or organizations to transact, the Russian government's lukewarm stance on the technology and other factors may limit its use for this purpose. U.S. President Joe Biden will announce new sanctions against Russia on Thursday. He said in public statements in hopes that financial penalties will convince Russian President Vladimir Putin to withdraw from Ukraine and cease war efforts. In doing so, the US and European Union are effectively trying to cut these officials and oligarchs off from being able to transact with the parties anywhere in the world. The move came hours after Russian military forces launched attacks on various cities and military bases in Ukraine, including in the nation's capital of Kiev. Russia first announced it would send peacekeepers into, I don't actually know all these pronunciations. Of course, you guys know I'm already bad with that, but Donetsk and Luhansk, I don't know, apologies there. Two regions in eastern Ukraine that Putin recognized as independent entities on Monday. A lot of what I do, by the way, guys, is read. So I actually don't read aloud until I'm on the show. I do need to start doing that a little bit better. And that is something that I need to work on. But that aside, let's get into the meat. That doesn't stop us from going through the critical thinking process here. The US, Canada, Japan, EU, and a number of other nations announced an initial slate of sanctions after this initial incursion, targeting specific people or entities. However, Wednesday's attack dwarfed Monday's incursion in scale, prompting Biden to announce further sanctions would be coming. The initial sanctions package was designed to impose overwhelming and immediate costs to the largest financial institutions and state-owned enterprises in Russia, Deputy National Security Advisor for International Economics Dalip Singh told reporters. This initial package would or could be modified as needed, Singh said. We're also prepared to impose powerful export controls as a part of our response package, he said at a White House press briefing. Both financial sanctions and export controls deny something to Russia that it needs and can't get from anywhere other than the United States or our allies and partners. Financial sanctions deny foreign capital to Russia, and export controls deny critical technological inputs that Russia needs to diversify its economy and to deliver on Putin's strategic ambitions in aerospace, defense, and high tech. Andrew Jacobson, an associate with law firm Seward and Kissel, told CoinDesk that he expects further sanctions to target Russia's largest banks, VTB Bank, Sberbank, and Gazprom Bank. Other sanctions could target Russia's energy sectors and oligarchs, particularly those who have assets overseas, such as yachts. The Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Asset Controls, which oversees U.S. sanctions, has the ability to put vessels and entities as well as people on its list, he said. Sanctions targeting oligarchs could include actions against their adult children and all assets located outside of Russia. These oligarchs constitute a key source of Putin's power base. I think that the biggest thing is really how U.S. companies are going to implement the sanctions into their compliance programs, Jacobson said. I think there's going to be some really tremendous challenges over the coming months, deciphering the new rules that come out, understanding really complex ownership structures and how the restrictions apply to those ownership structures. SWIFT access. The U.S. has not yet gone so far as to try and cut Russia off from SWIFT, the messaging network underpinning global financial transactions. Expelling Russia from SWIFT would mean the country would have difficulty transacting with any non-Russian financial institution. There is precedent. SWIFT cut a number of Iranian banks from its service in 2012. Blocking the country from participating in financial transactions with the rest of the world. At the time, local business operators said the move would make life even more difficult for us, Reuters reported. White House officials said expelling Russia from SWIFT was still on the table after announcing the earlier sanctions. Singh said that it would not be in the initial package. Quote, we have other severe measures we can take, and our allies and partners are ready to take in lockstep with us and don't have the same spillover effects, end quote, he said. But we always will monitor these options and we'll revise our judgments as times go on. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson called for SWIFT to eject Russia during a speech before the G7 on Thursday. Quote, I don't know that cutting them off from the SWIFT is really going to do much more. SWIFT is just a messaging system. It'd be an inconvenience in the short term, but ultimately in the long term, countries that have been cut off from SWIFT have still found ways to operate within the global financial system and operate domestically as well, end quote, he said. So here's crypto's role, which is going to be obviously, from my understanding, pretty opinionated from CoinDesk here, but while headlines suggest crypto might be used to bypass Russian sanctions, Jacobson does not see this as a likely workaround. Autocratic regimes would find it difficult to adopt decentralized assets, he said, and Russia in particular is not a fan of Bitcoin. Although Putin once met Ethereum creator Vitalik Buterin, the country's central bank tried to ban cryptocurrencies just weeks ago. And that's not quite true. I mean, they said that they wanted to ban cryptocurrencies and then they completely reversed. What they decided to do was essentially modify it, and the way that they modified it actually provides the government and the banks of Russia to participate in the decentralized form of cryptocurrency while restricting the citizens to a centralized form of cryptocurrency, making it impossible for them to basically purchase cryptocurrency unless it was through a state institution. We talked about this and how basically it goes against all the principles of Bitcoin. It is not sound, and it is very dangerous when basically you have the government coming in and telling the individuals of the public, the people that actually are being governed, how they can and cannot participate within cryptocurrency. So you have this kind of weird position where the control of cryptocurrency, they want to centralize that control, even to the point to where they have to get, the individual citizens in Russia have to essentially get approval to purchase over a certain amount of cryptocurrency. And they have to get that approval through, of course, the Bank of Russia. So that is where it's at right now. Obviously, for the price of Bitcoin, that seems good. But once we go back and we hit our guiding principles for Bitcoin, we say, no, this is not how we want it to function. We should fight that tooth and nail and say, this is not how it functions. You should allow your public to participate within it in a decentralized, self-custodial manner. All right. So, quote, I think Russia probably is thinking about using Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies to evade sanctions, but on the other hand, is probably concerned about those cryptocurrencies getting too much popularity within their own country, because that impacts their own control of their own monetary system and therefore impacts their power, end quote, he said. Very astute observation, and actually I agree with this one. What we are looking at essentially is, if they go the route of bypassing sanctions with cryptocurrencies, and then of course the people don't have access to like SWIFT to transact within their own country, and they start moving into self-custody of cryptocurrencies, what you have is a Trojan horse. You have a Trojan horse of Bitcoin, and that is filled with the people. And at that point, what you have is basically the government participating within the very thing that would overthrow their centralized control. And this is why I think he has a very valid point here. And I think that's really good. So here we go. Caroline Malcolm, chain analysis, head of international policy, told CoinDesk that the blockchain analytics firm had not yet seen any unusual activity from Russian crypto exchanges over the last few days. Even if some individuals do choose to turn to crypto, it's unclear whether they would be able to effectively bypass sanctions using decentralized assets. Companies might monitor sanctioned wallets for any transaction or refuse to transact with these addresses entirely. Quote, we've seen that in the past with sanctions. You've got examples where wallet addresses have been named as sanctioned entities, and that allows chain analysis to put in place alerts for our customers, whether they be government or from industry, end quote, Malcolm said. Quote, so that if they have transactions, which you know, intersecting with the sanctioned entities, they'll be able to see those and get an alert on those immediately, end quote. Governments increasingly have the tools they need to rein in crypto, Solidus Labs' Shen Arad said. It is a sign of crypto's maturation. That's weird. I don't know why I can't do it today. That it is being discussed as a tool to bypass sanctions, but the industry has also evolved to the point where financial regulators can monitor this sector, he said. Quote, regulators have developed the ability, I think, to recognize already that there are ways to rein it in, and the industry has recognized that it will be reined in one way or another, end quote, he said. And I think that's in reference to cryptocurrency. So part of the struggle here, obviously, is essentially there is a possibility for the demonization of cryptocurrency for bypassing sanctions. And this is where you have to really separate emotions surrounding the subject and your principles surrounding the subject. Because if you believe that Bitcoin will empower the individual to have financial autonomy at some point in the future, then you can basically re-guide yourself from that emotional reaction of what's going on in Ukraine, for example, and say, in the long run, I would support the decentralization of Bitcoin. And I think that that will essentially be that Trojan horse that takes care of this in the future. Fix the money, fix the world. Now, where people are basically getting too emotional and getting too involved with their opinions specifically on, and you guys need to be clear here, on the invasion of Ukraine from Russia. Not a good thing. I think we can all get on board with that for the most part. There may be some outliers. If you have a reason why you think it's good, that's your opinion. You can voice that. But that doesn't mean that we ignore the guiding principles of cryptocurrency to essentially enact something that we feel we could do on an emotional level to be like, no, and try to slap Russia's hand. Case in point, let's go ahead and talk about Flexpool. And this was a tweet that came out earlier, and I talked about it on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at SonOfATech. And basically, I'll get you guys what I said. So that way, you guys are on the same page with me, and then we can go from there. So basically, Flexpool said Flexpool.io is halting all service to Russia. And I said, eek, I don't support this move and will be migrating off the pool. 1, people of Russia doesn't equal the government. 2, crypto is for the people, not the government. That's a very basic rule. And then I did follow that up saying it also shows you don't respect decentralization. I could go on, but we'll save it for the morning show. We have been elaborating on that pretty far here. Now, this has already made the news now. It's been posted on Reddit, so you can go to this link. It's down in the description below. You can go to the Reddit and you can have your discussions there. And then it is now being covered by CoinDesk. I am curious what the opinion of CoinDesk is, so we're going to go ahead and read through it. And then we're going to go ahead and discuss whether this is a good move or a bad move. Ethereum mining pool Flexpool halts all services to Russia in wake of Ukraine invasion. The pool is possibly the first of its kind to cut services to Russian users. Flexpool, the world's 5th largest Ethereum mining pool, became possibly the first of its ilk to cut services to Russia users following the country's invasion of Ukraine. The move was taken to show solidarity with Ukraine. And then, quote, we generally do not get involved in politics despite our personal views as a company, end quote, a Flexpool spokesperson said in a message on Thursday evening in its official Telegram channel. Quote, however, this is greater than politics, greater than anyone. This is a war that may end the world. It certainly is ending the lives of many innocent people in Eastern Europe. It's also being protested by individuals within Russia. Okay, you need to keep that in mind. That is a key point here. So all you're really doing is giving the government, the Russian government, more centralized control over its people by taking away decentralized finance options. That's what you're doing. Okay, let's make that very clear before you get all high and mighty on this horse. The pool doesn't want to profit off the crisis or fund it indirectly, so is canceling all services to Russian IP addresses and paying outstanding balances to affected users, the message said, which apologized to Russian miners. Now, one of the arguments here is that some of the mining services would be going through Russian hosted servers that in turn could give some sort of funding to the Russian government. And I could see that point, but you could also just you could host, like literally you could host in an adjacent country that still has good ping, be paying a different country, and still allow Russian miners to go ahead and mine to those servers. And therefore you're not actually sending any of your payment directly from Flexpool to Russia. All right. That's what you could do. You could also utilize Web3 and decentralized infrastructure like Flux to go ahead and migrate into a manner that would also just get rid of this whole issue in the first place. Flexpool is the world's 5th biggest other mining pool, according to information platform miningpoolstats.com. It is probably the first to cut access for Russians amid the security crisis. Hivon, the 2nd largest pool, posted a message of solidarity to Ukraine its account saying it's impossible to stay away from the violence in Ukraine, but didn't announce any action. Reddit users have pointed out that miners can use efficient VPNs to bypass Flexpool's restrictions. And yeah, I mean, that's definitely like a point, but that's not the point. That's not the problem here that we have, right? The problem that we have here is, does that align with the guiding principles of Bitcoin, which is a peer-to-peer cashless system that basically empowers the individual with a financial autonomy? And if that's the case, then that should be applied blanket across the board. Once you start painting people broadly with a brush, that's when you end up with great distress within geopolitical situations. Anytime we've seen anything from World War I to World War II is a great example, where essentially all these sanctions and things went into place in Germany that essentially radicalized the people because we broadly painted a brush over the German people and kind of said they're all bad. Then you radicalize all of those people. So if you broadly paint a brush, all those people that are currently protesting in Russia against the war, you now cut them out and they say, okay, well, we were trying to do the right thing, but clearly the rest of the world doesn't give a crap about us, and they're shutting off all of our access. That's when you radicalize people and things get worse. Things do not get better when you broadly paint a brush over people. That is racism. That is discrimination as a whole, period, right? And that is not going to be okay. You cannot broadly discriminate against the people based on race, religion, ideology, or geographical location. That is where I stand as far as that goes. And so I do have up some reading material for you guys that I want to remind everybody of. We're going to talk about it all the time. We have the Bitcoin white paper here. Please read it. We have another one that really precursors this from the 90s. That is the Cypherpunks Manifesto by Eric Hughes, March 9th, 1993. This is a very important one. We have covered both of these on the channel numerous times. But if you are not aware of where this stands and where it comes from, you need to make yourself aware. And the reason you need to make yourself aware is because if you do not agree with these things, then you need to question whether or not you should participate within cryptocurrency. And you can disagree with it, and that's fine, but you need to understand what it is there for, what it stands for, and then you need to base it off of your guiding principles, whether or not you're going to participate in cryptocurrency. Whew. That's going to wrap it up for me. Let's go ahead, and we have someone I typically disagree with. I'm not going to lie to you guys. We have Ted Cruz here. Let me get my headphones plugged in. We have Ted Cruz here. I am in Texas. I have known of Ted Cruz for a long time. There's a lot of positions that I disagree with him on because I think that he is. I think that he doesn't live by his guiding principles, and this is a very key example. Now, the reason I say that is because I don't think that he values the individual rights across the board from a base principle standard. However, what he does do right now is he says in a tweet, and we have a video here, that one of the reasons I'm bullish on Bitcoin is because it's decentralized. Now, he makes an attack towards the left, and I do not condone the attack towards the left. I never condone left versus right attacks. I think that those are basically a moot point. We should be arguing facts, policies, etc., and we should be avoiding political alignment at all costs. Once again, that broad painting of a brush across an entire people does not allow for any nuance and any resolution. So I don't agree with him on this, but he says the left hates Bitcoin because they can't control.
So we need to decentralize. We need to break it apart. It's one of the reasons why I am so bullish on crypto, on Bitcoin, because it is decentralized and not controllable. And let me give a fantastic example. So Justin Trudeau said, I don't like me some truckers, so we're going to seize your assets. So then the court went to try to seize the crypto that was being given to the truckers. And I don't know how many of y'all saw a letter that I actually want to read from. It's a letter from a company, Bitcoin company called Nunchuck. Here's part of the letter. Dear Ontario Superior Court of Justice, our software is free. We do not collect any user identification information beyond email addresses. We also do not hold any keys. Therefore, we cannot freeze our users' accounts. We cannot prevent them from being moved. We do not have the knowledge of, quote, the existence, nature, value, and location of our users' assets. This is by design. Please look up how self-custody and private keys work. When the Canadian dollar becomes worthless, we will be here to serve you too.
Now, that on that grand scale is important for a couple reasons, because what it means is that people are aware of the power of Bitcoin and what it offers. You can agree with Ted Cruz, you can disagree with him, but on this point, and reading that in public is something that I find to be important to consider. And this is where we get into the argument of how Bitcoin allows for true democratization. And so why does that work that way, right? If everything is self-custody, peer-to-peer, and the people control their finances, essentially you can't have those influences of people in power dictating to the people not in power, because now it's a numbers game. Now it's the amount of people that support one way or another. And as long as those people actually go by the guiding principles of the individual rights, then at that point, what we end up having is a better society in the end. I don't care to play the rest of the video. One of the things that I really don't like about these political things is the way he makes the attacks. I'm not a fan of it, but I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of essentially the fact that what we have here is the proper concept of Bitcoin getting out into the public, which I think is important. So let's go ahead and talk about mining profitability, which is basically, I can't really show you. I'm not going to lie. Can't really show you right now because essentially we have moved our mining over. So here's Flexpool. I'm not on Flexpool anymore. Oh, I have two back here that I got to take off. My bad. I'll take these two off a little bit later. So here's me moving off of Flexpool here shortly before the announcement. So I think you guys can tell from my arguments and my personal belief in the way that this should function. I am not going to support censorship at the pool level. I've already had problems with pools and the issue of centralization surrounding pools. I was really excited about early on Ergo basically having a way to get around mining pools, and then that failed, unfortunately. Hopefully somebody will figure that out one day. But for the time being, because we are basically functioning within this system, I have turned it off. I have turned off all of it. I have asked for my last payout from Flexpool, and I will not be returning. Even if they reverse their decision, at this point, they have shown their hand and what they're willing to do. They are essentially willing to basically use their power. And this is one of the things I really don't like. If you show your hand that you are willing to use your power to support your ideology, regardless of what that ideology is, or if I agree with it, because like I said before, I agree that essentially Russia invading Ukraine is not a good thing. It doesn't matter. If you're going to utilize your power to basically influence your ideology within cryptocurrency, I will not support that. End of story. So we are now on Crazy Pool, I'm giving them another chance. We're going to go ahead and check it out. Luckily, all my miners did connect right away. We're at 5.81 gigahash. We're going to see how it goes. There are plenty of other options. Just because I am moving to Crazy Pool does not mean you should move to Crazy Pool too. I actually have a lower ping to Crazy Pool than I do to a lot of other places, and that's why I'm on there. Other options for you to move to, if you do wish to move off of Flexpool, are going to be listed on miningpoolstats.stream, as well as miningpoolprofits.com. Now, you can use basically these two tools along with a tool provided by two miners that allows you to ping, and you want to go ahead and use that ping from two miners to go ahead and start pinging different pools and seeing where you have the best latency. I've always preached that you want to go to the best latency because you will reduce the amount of stale shares there. So essentially, just to let you know, all right, you need to check your ping primarily for your profitability. Another way you can check your profitability on each individual pool is going to be at miningpoolprofits.com. And here, like we do every day, is kind of review essentially the most profitable pools on here. For the last 90 days, Mining Pool Hub in first, Flexpool in second, Crazy Pool in third. Now, you'll notice Mining Pool Hub is in first. Why am I not using Mining Pool Hub? Well, I have a base set of guiding principles for how I interact with cryptocurrency. Mining Pool Hub requires basically not a ton of KYC, but an email and a login. So they do track your email, they register it, and they attach that to your mining address, your mining IP, etc. I do not support any form of KYC in the mining process, and therefore I will not utilize Mining Pool Hub personally. If your principles guide you in a different manner and you decide that you want to be on Mining Pool Hub, they are looking like they are the most profitable for, of course, the past 90 days. I believe it was the past 60 days. You have Mining Pool Hub in first, Flexpool in second, Crazy Pool in third. Last 30 days, Mining Pool Hub in first, Flexpool in second, ZET in third. Last 21 days, Mining Pool Hub in first, Flexpool in second, ZET in third. Last 14 days, Mining Pool Hub in first, Flexpool in second, Ethermine in third. Last 7 days, Mining Pool Hub in first, Nanopool in second, Flexpool in third. Last 3 days, Mining Pool Hub in first, Flexpool or Crazy Pool in second, Ethermine in third. And for the last day, Nanopool in first, Flexpool in second, Ethermine in third. So that's what can kind of guide you as far as all that goes. So Detroit Irish asked a great question that we should address. He says, can't you just ping each pool's address through command prompt? Now, here's the thing. It depends on how the pool functions, because in a lot of cases you have different front end IPs that then will redirect you basically to the node that you're mining to for Ethereum in particular. And so, no, it's not always the case. You need to do the stratum ping, and there is essentially a tool you can utilize to get that. Because essentially, if you ping directly to the front end, for example, when I used to run pools, we would have like a front end in Atlanta, Georgia, and it would point to a node in Texas. And therefore, if you were in Atlanta and you pinged the front end, it looks really good. But then when you connected and pinged and it sent you over to Texas, wasn't so good. All right, so that's kind of just an idea of why that won't fully function all the time in that manner. Let's go ahead and see if there's been any significant hash rate changes and on the networks. And as you can see right now, not really. For Ethereum, we've been at 1 petahash. We are up. I think that is up 20 terahash. For the last 2 days, it was down to like 989 terahash. 980, somewhere between 980 and 990 terahash. So we have an increase of 20 terahash on the network. Is this Kazakhstan getting back online? Well, I think Bitcoin should be able to tell us this story, because Bitcoin will be the big one. Let's go ahead and look. And it doesn't look like it's Kazakhstan coming back online, because I would expect a more of an increase on Bitcoin as we currently sit at that 202 exahash. Here was that big drop off. It is starting to recover, but that big drop off from Kazakhstan and that 202 megawatts that went offline earlier this week was at 204 exahash at the top. Actually, sorry, 207 to 208 exahash at the top, and we're down to 202 exahash a second. So that is where we are at. So for that, no, I don't really see this affecting it by any means. Let's go ahead and look at Ravencoin. Ravencoin's really been coming down. We're still down, it looks like, at that 4 terahash a second. Looks like it's settling in right around that 4 terahash. No huge changes. Let's check out Flux real quick and see where it's at. Flux still does have this 51% on minerpool.org. I would encourage anybody that's mining to Flux in particular to go ahead and spread out that hash rate a little bit better. While Flux doesn't have the same risk of a 51% attack due to its nodes as other coins, it is still important to make sure that we're distributing that hash rate to maintain as much decentralization as possible. That's our job as miners. Let's go ahead and look at Ergo and click that through. So on Ergo, we essentially have Nanopool right here at 36. That's fine. Our overall hash rate has been increasing over the past 7 days. It's at 15.19 terahash a second. So Ergo is coming back up in its hash rate and has pretty good decentralization on the mining pools for the most part. Okie dokie. So I believe I have my Bitcoin miner up here. We're still making about that. It's going to be more than $15 a day now because we did have that price increase to almost $40,000 for Bitcoin, and we are at 0.000425. So that's where we're at as far as that goes. Okay. We'll get out of our flight sheets. We don't need it. Let's take a look here. We have the gold shell KD6 at $117 a day in first place for our ASIC miners, and the KD5 in second place at $79 a day. We are up a little bit on Kadena mining. The L7 is still down pretty hardcore at $26.66 a day. That's extremely stressful for people that have purchased an L7, in my humble opinion, because those are still going for $26,000. It's not worth it. You have way too many things to worry about with Dogecoin. Litecoin's not profitable enough. The price of those L7s need to come down. I don't recommend purchasing them at this point. But that kind of goes along the line with everything right now. I would still feel safer with a Bitcoin ASIC miner, primarily due to the fact that the governance on Bitcoin is going to be from the miners, as it should be. And essentially, because of that fact, the likelihood of it moving to something like proof of stake is very, very low, if non-existent. And you have 140 years or 120 years at this point before even the block reward goes away. So that's way past our lifetime. I think you can justify a longer ROI on Bitcoin miners than other miners from the ASIC perspective. The S19 Pro, though, is down to $11 a day on Bitcoin, and then through mining rig rentals of $14.74. As I'm seeing it right now, it should be more than this. If you're mining to pool in, I'm seeing better results over there. So are there any good deals right now? No, we are still sitting around the same basic ASIC pricing where you have essentially no real good prices yet going on. The M21S, like I said, the 56 terahash, if you want to get in cheap into ASIC mining, that's kind of the option you're looking at. If you want to go a little bit higher up, these koi miners, I've been running it. That's what's running over here. We had one dip off. That'll be in our review. Still kind of waiting to get that. We are sitting, though, at that 96 terahash a second for the 24-hour average, which is pretty close to the advertised 98 terahash a second. And I'll be trying to get the 92 terahash model and 83 terahash model as well for testing. And then, like I said, the M21S from all of the ASIC miners that I talked to love it because it's a quote tank, end quote. So there you go. We're going to get into questions and comments now at this point. So for that, remember, basically, Super chats are never required, always appreciated, and the first to be answered because they are the easiest to read and highlighted within the chat. Coming in second, we'll be tagging at Son of a Tech, and of course that will turn the message orange at the beginning, and that's why it's easier for me to track it. So please tag at Son of a Tech if you have a question or a comment. Now, obviously, we're going to have a controversial episode here to a certain extent. And I am aware that there are people that support Flexpool's decision, and there are people that agree with me. Now, either way, I expect that this to stay as... I expect it to stay as kind as possible when having this discourse. Of course, it's the internet, so I'm sure some things will go awry. If there is cursing, personal attacks, etc. within the message, I will not respond to it. All right, so that's where I'm at. Let's go ahead and pop in and get the information going. So, Hawk Crypto Mining Co. says $5. Thank you for the super chat. Says opinions: should the mining community organize and start hiring attorneys and supporting political candidates that support decentralization and mining? And that's a very good point, because currently, unfortunately, the people that we have representing the community for most of these situations that I've seen has been like BitBoy in Austin, for example. I don't align with his adoption of centralization, etc. I think that we should have a voice, a larger voice. Now, the mining farms are in Texas at a local level getting a pretty large voice. I think that's why we do see Ted Cruz supporting decentralization, because the fact is that without Bitcoin miners, the Texas grid would not have been fixed as fast as it was. And so it's very clear that there is benefit there, that industry directly benefits the local community. And basically, I think you start at the local level. Now, let's talk about attorneys, legal action, etc. So from the case of the miners, we talked about this before, and there was that overturn of the income tax on staking rewards recently. And while the IRS sent it back, luckily the couple didn't accept it. They are continuing to go through with the court proceedings. And if it comes out that essentially staking rewards are not income taxable as income, then miners are no longer taxable as income in theory as well. And miners will need to essentially get into the legal action to stop the IRS from charging miners income tax too. And that is where, from a legal perspective, where I see a path here in the short term. Okay. So yes, I do think that has to happen. And these are what I see happening there, right? So I want to say thanks to Heir to the Ron for joining, and welcome to the Sons on YouTube. And let's go ahead and get up here and see what's going on. So Lutrell asked Asamatech, have you figured out when you're going to talk with BBT on your show? Unfortunately, it's funny because he sends me the mug, he sends me that, and he hasn't sent me his schedule. So he is welcome to come on anytime. He just has to message me and get it sorted. I understand he's busy. I think he's also flying out to the Bitcoin conference in Miami. He's not participating, but he's going to be at an adjacent hotel. I was invited out by the same hotel. It's very kind of weird. Because there's no tickets involved, so I couldn't get into the conference. I found it kind of odd, and that is my wife's birthday weekend, so we will not be headed out there for this one. But I am looking at some conferences in the future as well. Hopefully, at least these local ones in Austin, I should try to be getting into. For me, if you guys aren't aware, I am a solo operation here, which means that I do everything on this channel, the entire mining farm maintenance, everything myself. All of the bookkeeping, everything is done myself right now. And it's a lot of work doing this show every day, clipping the show, creating other how-to content, review content, maintaining my mining farm. it is very hard for me to go out to like an event. Like if I went out to an event, do I have to skip the show? What happens? How much benefit happens there? And I'll give you a hint on YouTube. Content is king if I'm not creating content. And this isn't the fault of this is the way the algorithm works for YouTube. Then I take a big hit on YouTube. So it's very difficult to basically try to get everything done that I want to get done. I am trying my best, and I also am trying very hard to maintain my personal fitness and wellness, as well as capabilities to not only defend myself, but my family as well. And I spend a lot of my free time doing that and focusing on that with jiu-jitsu, archery, and then other general target practice, etc. So let's go ahead and say, Impala Kev says, "That son of a tech, come to Crazy Pool." We did. We're giving you another chance. It's all good says, "That son of a tech, I admire you for sticking to your principles when it comes to mining pool selection." Thank you, sir. Let's go ahead and look at the next $5 super chat. Elijah says, I'm currently mining on Ravencoin. What would your best recommendation be other than this for single GPU or low GPU miners? As far as pools for Ravencoin, I guess I'm not clear on the question. Or GPUs or what? For Ravencoin GPUs, I usually stick with NVIDIA. For pools, 2 miners is where I've pretty much had most of my experience. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. Nikon FYA says, "At son of a tech, I'm seeing a Strix 3090 at my store for about $2,000 and another MSI 3090 for $1,700. Would you recommend me buying one or both at this point, or should I be waiting till it tanks more?" So, give me this weekend. I'm actually trying to coordinate a tour of a warehouse / data center hosting facility. And give me a little bit. As far as we're talking about with the profitability on the 3090, you are under $4 a day right now. Does that come back? Maybe. Does it not? Maybe. It's really hard to determine. Your ROI is pretty far out at that $2,000 range. Hedging on what, close to like over a year at that point. And then you have to move it over. I think that expanding obviously is always going to be good. Getting it for $1,700 sounds like a fantastic deal at this current market pricing, but I think there are more options coming onto the market. And I think that there are going to be a lot of retailers, from what I can tell, especially the ones that we're buying for mining supply, that are going to be putting stuff out to the general consumer public. And the reason for that is a lot of these mining farms that were doing pre-orders, and I'm just being straight up honest with you as I talk to the industry, here's what's happening right now. Suppliers have incoming stock of hundreds of A2000s and 4000s, for example, for mining farms, and these mining farms are canceling their orders. So what you have is a whole bunch of suppliers getting stuck with stock. And that is in fact happening right now with multiple suppliers that I've chatted with. They are all looking to liquidate these GPUs as quickly as possible, because the way it functions is that they are not paying for these cards. So they need to actually sell them off so that they can then pay the cards off that they ordered. So you're going to be seeing this over the next couple months. That is what I'm getting from the inside information from the suppliers that I've been chatting with. So it may be, like I said, one of those times before where you're kind of starting to pause because we may have better deals coming along. Let me get down here. Looking for questions. Lucas says, "That son of a tech, can you make a new data set on what to mine with fixed 2080 Ti, ETH, and Flux? Both are far off from reality." I usually do update it when we are doing it on the site. or when we do it on the live stream, I do update them. I'm trying to remember if I didn't think the 2080 Ti was off. It was showing the 60 mega hash a second, which is what I get. It is off on Flux, which using mini Z is 110 solutions a second. So, we'll keep tracking it. Now, I didn't cover those today, probably because I'm moving pools and we had a lot to get through. So Andre says, do you think Biden will have a stronger position with crypto market now because Russia can now use crypto to avoid economic sanctions? There is something to be said for the establishment and those in control to use the Russian sanction situation as an excuse to put more stringent regulation within cryptocurrency. And it will come down to the politicians, et cetera, that we support. Now, I don't care what side of the aisle you are on at this point because of my involvement within crypto. I will definitely be specifically a crypto issue voting member of society, meaning that is my primary goal. You know how like some people only vote based on abortion, some people only vote based on 2A. I will only be voting based on your cryptocurrency policy. Detroit Irish says, Ask Seven Tech, you could have sold the conference as a surprise birthday vacation. Yeah, nope, not at all, good sir. It's all good. Says, Ask Seven Tech, can you highlight those Texas conferences happening this year? I'm near Houston, so anything other than El Paso is a day trip. I will try to. Part of the problem is I need to do the research and see which ones myself. And then whichever ones I'm going to attend, I will definitely be notifying, of course, everybody that I will be attending it. Nicholas Kane says, Ask Seven Tech, did you see Linus Tech did a small test on ETH with an A100 on there? NVIDIA refused to send this to us video. You can see it there, and it's 173 mega hash a second and 243 watts. Yes, I did see that, and that's pretty awesome. Obviously, it'd be cool to test it in different algorithms, etc. And it looks really good. All the A series seem really, really good from a power to hash rate ratio. Ertana says, at Tech, you left Flexpool just because they banned Russians, or do you think without Russian hash rate profits will go down? No, I explained all of that earlier in the show. You need to go back and watch it. It is based on my guiding principles surrounding Bitcoin and its purpose and how it operates and the future of financial autonomy. Doc Duggan says, do you think we will see an MSRP drop for cards such as $1,500 3090 Founders Edition? I mean, eventually, yes, we do see a price drop like we talked about earlier in the show at the very beginning. Of course, we have essentially the largest shipment from both AMD and NVIDIA since Q2 of 2018. That's significant. That is very significant. I think you're definitely going to see it right now. You're going to start seeing availability for the A series because they're the most efficient, and a whole bunch of miners are kind of putting the pause break on these types of things, and it's leaving suppliers in the lurch. Talon says, that's on the tech. Right as you said that, a cloud moved and a ray of sun came through your window onto your screen. Yeah. Detroit Irish says, hook up on canceled A2000 sources. That is what I'm working on this weekend. I'm actually traveling to Dallas. We will be doing a warehouse and data center tour and working on group buy options, etc. So I got your back. We're going to be working on it. Okay. Annette Tolbert says, Ask Tech, do you use software to file your crypto taxes like coin tracking? I use bitcoin.tax to get the initial numbers, and then that is supplied to, of course, the CPA, tax attorney, and all those guys, right? So that's where we're at. But to get the actual information, like I put the wallet address in bitcoin.tax that I mine to, and then it pulls all the transactions, and that's how you get your income. Bob Blaze says, Son of a Tech, keep up the great work. Thank you, my man. Hope all the best to you and the community. I hope the best to you as well and the community as well. All right, boys. So we're going to call it for today. I am going to head to jiu-jitsu. I look forward to seeing all the comments later in the comment section, as well as the clipped versions of this. Let me know what your favorite part was. Don't forget to hit that like button. I'm pretty sure we could at least get another 7 likes to pop us over that 100 like, which would be helpful for the YouTube algorithm. If you find what I said useful or helpful to explain exactly what the purpose of Bitcoin is, please share that out so that we get the word out about what's going on, why self-custody is important, why decentralization is important, why the individual financial autonomy is important, and let's get the word out, because this is about a lot more than just our individual mining profitability. Hit the like, comment, and I will see you next Tuesday.